There are truths in the realm of romantic dynamics that, once uncovered, shift how we understand connection. These truths aren't malicious, but they challenge the comfort of assumptions and unspoken patterns. Many women may prefer these ideas stay hidden, not out of secrecy, but because they expose emotional strategies long embedded in culture, self-preservation, and vulnerability. This exploration isn't a blame game or a manual for manipulation. Rather, it's a guide for men seeking clarity in their emotional experiences with women, especially when faced with silence, emotional shifts, or confusing behavior. Here are 5 invisible dynamics that shape how many women navigate attraction and connection. 1. Strategic silence. A tool of insight, not distance. When a woman goes quiet, it is rarely a void, it's a space filled with observation. Silence is not always a sign of disinterest but often an act of intentional reflection. Raised in cultures that reward listening over confrontation, many women develop the power of silence not as a weakness, but as a form of emotional data gathering. In moments of conflict or vulnerability, when a man fills the silence with urgency, explanations, or anxiety, he reveals his attachment style and emotional coping mechanisms. A woman watches how he reacts under pressure. Does he stay composed or become defensive? Her stillness isn't passivity. It is a mirror reflecting a man's emotional maturity, his steadiness, and his self-worth. Men who understand this don't rush to fix or clarify. They remain grounded, signaling emotional maturity and self-possession. This form of communication transcends words. It's about presence, patience, and truth revealed in the unsaid. 2. Emotional mirroring. Connection or investigation? Emotional mirroring is the subtle art of aligning one's tone, energy, and expression to another's. Women often use this adaptive strategy not just to create connection, but to assess emotional safety. It's how many women gauge a man's emotional depth without risking vulnerability. A woman might match the enthusiasm of a confident man or reflect the calmness of a more reserved one. This is not random, it's socially evolved behavior. Through mirroring, she builds rapport and simultaneously evaluates. How does he respond to emotional shifts? Does he follow, lead, or retreat? For the man unaware of this dynamic, it can feel like instant chemistry. But emotional mirroring doesn't always indicate emotional investment. It can simply be a method of observing, a non-verbal way of asking, "Can I trust what I'm seeing?" 3. The internal ranking system. A silent emotional hierarchy. Women often sort men through an unspoken emotional hierarchy shaped by experience, instinct, and self-preservation. At the top are men who radiate self-assurance, emotional consistency, and quiet strength, not necessarily wealth or looks. These men are respected because they hold their ground without seeking validation. Further down are men who bring lightness, distraction, or utility, valued in moments but not deeply desired. Below them are the tolerable ones, present but emotionally unremarkable. At the base are those who overstep, cling, or create discomfort. They are not rejected with cruelty but distanced to preserve peace. This hierarchy isn't static. A man's position can shift depending on how he handles emotional tension, boundaries, or ambiguity. Politeness shouldn't be mistaken for desire, and presence doesn't always equate to priority. Women rank based on how emotionally safe, respected, and understood they feel, not on superficial gestures. 4. Sexual gatekeeping. A language of emotional safety across cultures. Women are taught to treat their desirability as a form of currency, something to protect, not readily offer. Thus, even in the presence of strong attraction, many women instinctively guard their emotions and physical intimacy. This isn't manipulation, it's emotional defense. From a young age, women are conditioned to equate intimacy with risk, social, personal, and emotional. Gatekeeping becomes a means of protecting vulnerability. A woman may delay intimacy not out of disinterest but to see how a man responds to resistance. Does he grow impatient or stay grounded? For men, this calls for empathy over frustration. A pause isn't always a no, sometimes it's a silent request for reassurance. Will you still be here if I don't immediately say yes? 5. The subtle influence of male competition. When multiple men vie for a woman's attention, whether intentionally provoked or not, a primal reaction is triggered. Men begin to compete, posturing subtly, seeking to prove their worth. Even without realizing it, women sometimes allow this dynamic to unfold by making other male interest visible. This isn't necessarily deceitful, it's rooted in a deep understanding of male psychology. When scarcity is perceived, value increases. But this strategy, conscious or not, has risks. Men caught in the haze of competition may confuse desire with urgency, and effort with emotional insecurity. Recognizing this pattern enables men to reclaim their clarity. True connection doesn't require rivalry. It grows in spaces where presence replaces performance, and groundedness outweighs reactive effort. Conclusion: understanding these unspoken dynamics is not about outsmarting women or decoding behavior like a puzzle. It's about emotional awareness, recognizing that what often appears as confusion or rejection may actually be a protective pattern shaped by life experience. When a man no longer needs to chase, explain, or perform to feel worthy, he steps into a steadiness that is rare and deeply attractive. He listens without collapsing into insecurity, responds without trying to fix, and stands firm without demanding clarity. Such men are not remembered for their intensity, but for their integrity. They don't try to be chosen, they choose to remain centered. And in a world of noise and emotional performance, that stillness speaks louder than words.